Hello, chefs. This is Chef's PSA, and I'm your host, André Natera. Today I'm joined by Franck Desplechin, chef, hospitality leader, and author of Relentless Growth. He spent decades in the kitchen in leadership roles and now focuses on what actually sustains success beyond titles, awards, and ego. In this episode, we talk about storytelling, authority earned through experience, generational shifts in kitchens, mentorship, and working in luxury hotels. Stay tuned. Great restaurants don't always bring customers in. Great stories do. Because in food, beverage, and hospitality, what you sell is only part of the story. It's the why behind it, the authority you create, and the experience that you build. Market Scale turns expertise into content that connects. Podcasts, video series, and industry education. Not ads, assets. Market Scale has brought Run the Pass and How to Manage Like an Executive Chef to life. Real-world examples of how great content leads the conversation. Because attention is earned, and the industry doesn't need more noise, it needs more leaders.
So I'm French, and I've skipped high school, got into the world of chef, and at the time I believed that intensity, endurance, shut the fuck up is the way of being professional. And as long as you respect those three rules, then you earn your pace and you continue to climb. And so I did that for as long as I could remember. I continued the ladder, and when I became my own exec chef and that I reached kind of the summit of what my career was, and one night after service, something was not feeling right. I had just become exec chef about 3 months prior, and I was by myself in the kitchen.
How old are you at this point?
29.
29. And where were you the chef?
I was in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I realized that I felt completely disconnected from myself. I felt like something was not sitting right. I thought that I would be into a level of fulfillment that I just didn't feel at all. And that's where I kind of trying to understand why, now that I had everything that I've dreamed of, work 15 years to build, that I was just not feeling it. Like almost like an aha moment that I was waiting for that I didn't feel. And that's where I realized that chasing the success was not necessarily what would give me that fulfillment. And so I started to introspect, making self-assessment of what I was missing along my journey, and started to focus on my mindset and what growth means to me, and kind of removing the word success being an external validation and becoming more towards growth, which was my internal alignment with who I wanted to be and the identity that I wanted to be. And from that point on, all the growth expected and that I did throughout my career started to make a lot of sense. I was able to connect the dot backwards with the choices that I've made in my career, but for the wrong rationale. And so I just started to now taking the next job that was providing me an ability and a space to be myself, and being able to be the leader that I wanted to be rather than the leader I was expected to be. And that shifted everything for me from that point on.
It's interesting that you share that. I had a very similar experience with my second executive chef job, and it was the job that I had wanted for quite some time. And it was a beautiful luxury hotel resort in California with multiple restaurants. And we had a restaurant where we had complete carte blanche to do whatever we wanted. And we were doing, at that time, molecular gastronomy, which was hot, bubble food, as I like to call it. And I remember I hated it. I felt soulless. I felt drained. I was like, I finally am able to express myself creatively with all this food. And we've talked about working in hotels. When you work in a hotel and you have multiple restaurants, it's great because you could express yourself through different identities, different aspects of your personality. And I remember sitting outside in the where the employees would smoke cigarettes, and just kind of looking up at the palm trees and the California sky. And I said, I hate it here. I hate this job. And I thought I was chasing the glory and the accolades, and the freedom as a chef to do my food and express myself. And when I finally got there, I didn't enjoy it. Um, you came to the realization immediately. Then I didn't, because I still kept chasing. I thought, well, maybe I got to do better food. Maybe I gotta, maybe I thought this was it, but it wasn't. So I still kept chasing that. And it wasn't until maybe 10 years after that moment that it finally clicked. But for me, it was different, because what clicked for me was where I was successful had everything to do with workplace culture. And it had nothing to do with my culinary ability, and that was the moment for me. But it's interesting because it's very similar to how you explained it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I've always been driven with a goal and objective. I always had that. When I entered the luxury hotel world in America, or at least it was an American company, we started with it, when I was 23 years old. I find out there was only about 23 or 24 St. Regis in the world at the time. And St. Regis brand was on the top of the brands at the time. And when I find out that I could be an exec chef young within this industry, and I could become an exec chef young within the St. Regis, who was one of the best brands, I started to make myself a goal. I said, okay, my goal now is to be the youngest exec chef of a St. Regis. And in order to do that, I started to look at every single exec chef that existed within St. Regis and find out that the oldest one at the time was about 31 to 32 years old. I said, okay, my goal now is to be less than 30 years old when I'm going to reach it. And that became the only motivation. I remove all distraction and all noises out of my life for 7 years in order to reach that. And obviously, I reached my goal. I got it at 29 years old in 8 months. So, but when I got it, I just, satisfaction. I just check my hand for about 5 minutes, then move on. And then 3 months later, that's where I realized that I was entirely disconnected. I just was not. I just said, okay, well, what's next now? It's not like my life is over. I'm 29. And but all of this, I was having the wrong goals, the wrong objective. They were fuel. I understand that. They're the few that made me able to reach that level of excellence, but they were not necessarily providing me any kind of fulfillment. I was just blind to my real needs that I needed to have, which, who am I doing this for? I was self-serving. I was doing everything for me. I was being able to provide that level of, you're receiving those accolades and you're receiving those articles about you and what you do, and
those are poison sometimes.
They just fuel your ego as much as possible, and then you realize that they're not the right one. All those titles, those stars, those moments when it gets hard, some of the days that it gets hard, you realize that they actually don't help you at all.
It's interesting. And again, very similar. What I noticed in myself is that I was very ready for the head chef job, culinary wise, but I was not ready emotionally. And that was for me what I noticed is I was still, temperamental, emotional. I would get upset very easily. I didn't know how to lead, and so as I take a step back now, and I give advice to chefs that are on the come up, is like, just because you're a good cook does not mean you're going to be a good chef. Those two things don't always equal, because my culinary ability skyrocketed, but my leadership was, they didn't meet until probably in my late 30s, where they kind of hit that point where they merge, equilibrium. It's interesting to hear someone else share this, because I love hearing it, because it's like, wow, very, very similar to what I experienced. And, on the point of the awards, one of the things that I noticed is you start to chase them because it becomes expected, not because I get that rush anymore. It's like, I'm expected to be on these lists, or I'm expected to get the stars, or fill in the blank, whatever award that I happen to be receiving, or to be invited to the certain chef's network circle event.
Well, the bigger the award, the bigger the article, the bigger the exposure is what you assimilate as you progress, and you assimilate as you success. Therefore, you're just chasing them because they are transactional.
Right. But then you start to believe the bullshit. You start to believe I'm really as great as they wrote about me.
Yep.
The danger in that is, if you believe everything that's positive, then you're also likely to get crushed by everything that's negative.
Absolutely.
because when they write a negative article about you, and I know I experienced this firsthand, um, when everything was, when I was the hammer, I loved it, but as soon as I became the nail, not so fun,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I thought, wow, am I really that bad? Do I suck? They're writing that the food's not good anymore. Maybe I lost my magic or whatever the case may be. And it's interesting because you have to look at it very objectively. When you're receiving positive accolades or negative accolades, it's like if you have 10 cameras taking a photo of you, they all have a different photograph. They're all from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
And you're in all of them,
Mm-hmm.
but they're all different perspectives of you. It's not you. Interesting. I love it, Chef. Go on. I'm loving this. I'm loving your story so
Yes,
far.
it's funny you mentioned that because when you enter the world of luxury hotels,
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a part, the fact that I was French, it's an expectation that I'm a good chef because I come from France, especially coming in America. So it didn't matter if I suck at cooking. I was French, therefore I can be a good chef.
It was almost like you had an authority
Yes.
above everyone.
And I've heard it the very first time when I started, because when I came to US 13 years ago, I didn't speak a word in English, so I didn't understand anything. But when I started to get my English squared and being able to understand, when we're doing tastings for weddings and like a year prior to the wedding, and I realized that my sales managers or director, the way they were sharing, and it's like, if you're choosing us, we have a menu that is being written by a French chef that has worked here, 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 here. And they just kind of, I became organically kind of a marketing aspect and a marketing value of the hotel just because of who I am.
Yeah.
And I started to take that. My ego was like, I have a head like a freaking melon. And I just decided, I said, wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling so appreciated.
It's like it's a
in the United
superpower.
States. It's like, wow. I said, in France, if you don't have a Michelin star, you're a nobody. And in US, just because I was who I am, I was already receiving a lot of accolades. And that was very dangerous because I started to understand that I was a value of the hotel just because of who I was. And so when I did some events or when I was in restaurant and when you're getting guests that just say it was the most horrible vacation I ever have in this hotel, the food sucks. And then you're getting all those things. And if you're getting an ego and a pride that is too high, you almost diminishes and they say they just didn't understand.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to focus on the right one. And then you're just starting to realize that you're actually feeding your own ego and you're fueling your own pride into you are that good. And you fall from the sky very quickly when you have a general manager that comes forward and just say, okay, Franck, your performance is not great. And then suddenly you're starting to, what do you mean? I don't understand. And you fall from cloud nine and you just don't know how to behave. You don't know. And you're starting to cat's blame to everything else and not looking at yourself. So it's important, I think, as you're working towards your own growth and internal alignments, that you are looking at the role you're playing when it's good and the role you're playing when it's not going so good and how much you're impacting either of them.
Yeah. And it's easier said than done. I'll say that. Like, it took me 15, 20 years to figure it out as a chef, right? Before I fully, and even then, the person that I thought mastered it when I left the culinary world in 2022, in 2025, where we are now, I think I would change things then. Like even now I've grown. I'm like, I would do things different now because I understand things differently. So it's a constant evolutionary process that an individual goes through. And it's, I like to say, when you were a little kid, you played with trucks and when you were a teenager, you played with girls, right? So it's like your interests change as you grow up. And the same thing happens as a chef. What you thought was really interesting with food, with culture, with leadership, those things also evolve with you and you mature as a chef. One of the things that I find very interesting is a lot of times we look at some of these older chefs and we think that they don't have value, which is terrible. And the reason we associate value a lot of times as a chef is we associate value with culinary trendiness or acumen. We say they bring value because they're able to do X amount of things, and their food is very relevant, or they're receiving awards. So that's the value. But what we're missing out is sometimes the value isn't necessarily just that. The value is also the fact that they understand how to remain calm in situations. They understand how to develop their
Absolutely,
team.
yeah.
They understand that, hey, you got to ride the wave. There's going to be good times and bad times. They've been up and they've been down. But what ends up happening is you have a younger chef who looks at that and says, I could do better food than them, and I'll do it for less. And so the boss pushes them out, right? We sometimes push out some of the older, we push out the threat, and we promote a little bit of a naive chef who has culinary ability but is naive in all these other aspects that the more seasoned chef did have. Maybe they weren't the most trendy, but it's an interesting dynamic. A lot of people, and I want to ask you about this, a lot of people have said that we've pushed out some of our best and brightest, around the COVID 2020 reset that we had recently. What's your take on that?
I agree that the industry has lost some of the most talented people. I think you would think that the people have less for another industry, but I think the industry, when they had the opportunity during COVID to reinvent themselves, they were on standby like everybody else in the world. They came back with the same mindset that, we just took a break. Let's take it where we left it off. And you realize that that just didn't stick. People had a taste for work-life balance. They had a taste for what it means to not work all the time, and they loved it. And they just ended up choosing something else than the industry that they were conditioned to choose before that. So I believe that the industry pushed out the best people out of the industry, and now we are tackling a different workforce. They're not the millennials anymore. They're the Gen Zs that are coming within the industry, and they have different mindset. They have different way of looking at life, and they're not necessarily willing, like me, when I used to be normalizing pain and suffering within the industry. I used to normalize this, but the generation that comes after us, they're not lazy. They're just not willing to put up with meaningless pain. They're just not willing to do that. They're not willing to just shut the fuck up. They're willing to just work, do what's required, but they're not necessarily willing to compromise their identity and who they want to be. And I think we are right in the middle of this now. And I think it's just imploding more than exploding. And so, yeah, people now, would you have thought one time in any time in your career that you could just quit with no job lined up after that?
Absolutely not.
Yes. Well, now
I would get anxiety thinking about that.
Oh, it gives anxiety before you even give you notice you have anxiety.
Right.
And so you're starting to line up another job to make sure the anxiety is as short as possible. Here we're dealing with a generation that do not even care about that. They just say, you know what? It's not for me. I'm going to quit. Do you have something? I say, no, I'll just take a month off. I'll figure it out. Like I've seen so many younger generation just doing this, and I'm just like mind blowing looking at this and say, but what are you going to do after? I say, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And that's where after you see that on resumes, when you're receiving those resumes, you see people have jumped around and people have been able to say, oh, I don't understand. Why did you have 4 jobs in the last 2 years? Yeah, that was just not the job for me. And they all have rational and realistic reason why they didn't stay, that you almost give it, okay, that makes total sense. But I was wired to see a resume that needed to be progressive, linear, and see that there is something someone has taken time to build a resume over the last 10 years. But those one became one unicorn out of 25 resumes, which is not sustainable for us. We kind of needed to reinvent ourselves on how we're hiring the generation that comes after us because they're just looking at things different than what we were. The same way that my parents thought that playing video games was a waste of my time. But if I had persevered in video games, I might be in the video games business and I probably would not be doing everything that I do now. But that was a world they did not understand and a world that they did not comprehend because that's not the world they were coming from. And I'm trying myself to change that narrative, to realize that I can actually pivot and being aware of what they're looking for and trying to shape them in the world that they can thrive. And that's what I'm trying to do.
How do you think, knowing that, and I think your assessment is spot on, by the way, and you could say it's positive, you could say it's negative, it just is. How do you adjust kitchens now for that because you still want to have retention. You still don't want to lose people after a few weeks when they say this is not for me. But a lot of the same chaos still exists in kitchens. You still have the endless tickets. You still have the amount of prep. You still have small margins. You still have to make food costs. You still have the pressure of ownership, and the lease and everything that goes with it. And
the labor's up.
And then you're still dealing with all of that. But now you also have a new thing. And it's not that it's a new thing. It's just there's a spotlight on it right now. Is now you have to also create an environment and a culture where people want to work for you and not leave after their first shift, so to speak, when they say so-and-so, this is just not for me. So how are you approaching that challenge now?
I think I've approached it for years now. And I think I've, unfortunately, in many organizations that I was being treated as an anomaly. I was taking this extra time to allow mistakes. And when you work in a luxury environment, when mistake is the enemy, excellence is what you thrive for, there's no space or grace to allow mistakes. But I was allowing it. And I was allowing it because I knew at that point that I was not seeking out excellence. I was just seeking out retention. I was just seeking out an environment that is healthy. And I wanted people to come to work for me because, man, I was tired and exhausted of having to receive a call at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, the hostess called out, can you come be a host? And then you finish your host shift as the boss. And then you say, hey, I need some help here for this. And you end up working 16-hour shifts, 17-hour shift when you've done 5 jobs except yours. Right. And so you kind of looking at it and just say,
and then you get the pressure saying, why isn't it your stuff done?
Yeah. And then you do that for too many days in a row. And suddenly you say, well, we got some bad reviews. Franck, why did you miss the meeting? And he's like, well, I missed the meeting because I was on the floor trying to make sure that the lunch goes well. Right. And so all of those things, you being held accountable for the wrong expectation. And you have 2 narratives. You have the one that you believe is the way to go, and you have the one that you're being held accountable for. And so I guess I got into places where I was fighting it. I was fighting the expectation out of me, and I was just following my authentic self. I was following my instinct, and I started to pay attention to the individuals that was working for me. And it took me a lot more time. So I was still doing long shift. Instead of 16 hours exhausting, I was maybe doing 12-hour shift. But those 12 hours were becoming meaningful because I was spending the extra time to say, hey, Megan, let's go and sit down for a minute. It's not called. There's no meeting on your schedule, nothing. So let's go sit down for a minute. And you changing the narrative of why is the boss calling me in his office to, yeah, I would love to have time with you.
Right.
And once you've changed that,
when you realize it's a human relations business,
it's at the end of the day, hospitality is about people serving people. It has nothing to do with food, regardless of what chef you are. You realize that you're here in a people business, therefore you take care of people. And in order to do that, you have to be taking each individual and finding out what is it that they need, how can you help? And you find out that younger generation is actually responding very well into a development-driven leadership versus a performance-driven leadership.
Yeah. And going around for me, shaking everyone's hand when I would arrive to work, sitting down and having an espresso with them. Those are the moments that they remember. They remember the time that we spent sitting down having, story time or whatever. I was doing a podcast before I was doing a podcast with my staff. It's funny that you talk about hotels because I spent a lot of time in luxury hotels as well. And I very much enjoyed my time in hotels, especially because I'm not sure if people fully understand the difference between just a hotel and a high-end luxury hotel. You're a high-end luxury hotel. There's some really interesting positives to it in terms of, I don't want to say money's no object, but it's less of an issue. Food cost, you got to hit it, but nothing really happens if you don't. You're able to be more creative. You're constantly doing special events. You're exposed to many more types of cuisine. You have resources. You have a pastry chef. You probably have a pastry team. You're able to make showpieces and things like that. You have access to an engineering team that's going to repair your equipment and change the light bulbs. You have a stewarding team that's going to scrub the floors, or night cleaners that come in. So you have many more resources.
Everything functioning correctly.
If everything's functioning correctly, you have a lot more resources than than a typical hotel and also an independent restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't like about hotels, having been in an independent restaurant and also in a hotel, and even especially now with what I do with when I do consulting work, and I know you do a lot of consulting work right now as well. One of the things that hotels get wrong, and it's not talked about enough, so I want to say this because I know a lot of people from hotels listen to my podcast. So this is me speaking to them. What hotels do wrong is we teach chefs how to go into cost containment mode.
Mm-hmm.
But an independent restaurant teaches you how to go on the offense with sales, because you live and die in a restaurant every day by sales. How much money did you make?
Mm-hmm.
Where a hotel, they don't view it always from a sales optics, because it's going to take them a year before they have to do job eliminations,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not going to feel the pain for 2 or 3 years out. But an independent restaurant is going to feel the pain next week, next month, if we don't have sales. And so what hotels typically do is they go into immediate cost cutting mode. We'll just close this restaurant, or we'll
contingency plan.
Yeah, contingency plans, which I think is completely the wrong way to frame it, because what you end up teaching the chefs is there's no sense of urgency on taking that club sandwich with foie gras off the menu that's not selling, but the chef likes to do their food.
Mm-hmm.
There's no urgency in it, because if it was selling, it's not a problem, but it's not selling and no one's telling me not to. So I'm going to try and cut people's hours and do all this instead of focusing on the real problem. So I do think that hotels sometimes have that negative aspect of, they don't teach you how to be good entrepreneurs. They teach you how to be good managers and cost cutters.
Yeah, I totally agree. You find yourself in a position when suddenly the contingency plan, the C word, that they're coming and they throw this contingency plan, and suddenly they're just telling you, okay, well, we need to save money, and we need to save X amount of money. And the most expensive labor in an entire hotel is usually engineering or culinary. Those are the most expensive because they're skilled in technician. Yeah. So they're the first thing, because at that time, the stakeholder, the ownership, the management company, whoever they are, they want an immediate result. They want the P&L of this month to be showing that there is actual result, impactful result. But when you have a resort with 9 outlets, 60 culinary, and 300 rooms in a luxury business, it's hard to make an impact for the months. So their reaction of pulling the plug comes usually very late in the game, when we could have prevented all this. Mm-hmm. But because we made food costs, because there was profit, then let's not look at the opportunities. And when you go into those P&L reviews, you just pay attention, and you just you coming all prepared to the P&L review, because you have opportunities, you can do better into this aspect, and you're coming all prepared. And they just overshadow this whole thing. I say, I think it was a great story. Great month, guys. Good job. See you next month.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. But I have some stuff. I say, no, you're good, man. It happens. It's fine. And so you end up taking it in and you say, okay, I don't want to get just scolded and held accountable if I don't need to.
Right.
But then you realize 2 months later, I say, well, what's happening, Franck? Why is the food cost not good? That's like the second month. And there's a saying within chefs in hotel, you're never as good as your last food cost.
Yeah.
And so you can have 7 months of amazing food costs and being aligned, but then the 8th month, you messed it up some ways. You order more food, or whatever you did went sideways, and suddenly you feel like your job.
Those late invoices finally.
This is and you say, what do you mean you didn't pay the invoice?
These invoices are from 4 months ago.
Yep.
They're the big ones.
And they're the one that suddenly you feel super stressed out, super anxious, because now your entire job and existence in this hotel is in question because you messed up a month, and you just well, that doesn't sit well. And so you have that pressure to meet food costs, which now distract you from what you're actually supposed to be doing, because now the food cost is the only thing that you're focusing on.
Yeah, you're playing catch up for something that happened several months back.
Yeah.
When you should be focusing on how do I improve the operation today. And what a lot of the mistakes happen in hotels is you're behind a computer screen looking at Excel spreadsheets and P&Ls and labor reports, but you're not in the operation, where if you were teaching them how to trim meat better, and you were showing them what not to throw away and how to turn that trim into something that can be sold.
Absolutely.
If you were you would see that if you were in the operation, but instead you're stuck in a meeting. And I don't know how many times as a chef I was pulled into P&L review or labor review or cost review. It happened multiple times a month, but I was never pulled into what we call RevMax meeting,
No.
right? No,
Mm-hmm.
that was always the sales team.
Yeah.
And so that always taught us to be managing the cost, but it never taught us how to increase sales. And we were always excluded in general. Now, I'm not saying every operation operates that way. If you're a hotelier and you're listening to this podcast, here's some advice from the two of us. Bring your chef and teach them how to raise money.
Yeah.
Teach them how to increase
Show
revenue.
them a star report.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Help them understand that it is all about revenue. And as the expression is, revenue cures or forgives all sins.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But we don't talk about that enough. We always just talk about like food cost. And I would hate it. When I would get together with other chefs, if there was like a conference or something and you're with other chefs and they would just stand around, what's your food cost? Oh, I hit a 21 and I hit a 19. I'd be like, yeah, all of your food sucks. All of you are shitty chefs. That's what I would always think. Like, you guys are sitting here bragging about how great your food cost is, and all of you have empty restaurants with terrible food. Like, how are you proud of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my food cost is 3% higher, but guess what? All my employees are happy. I got fucking articles written about how great our food is. We have a line out the door. Sorry, but you keep your 2% pride.
That's the real measurement.
Yeah.
Is do you have how do you measure success in that regard? And it's usually the external validation of you made food costs, therefore you should be validated. I think we forgot that the real measure of success is, do you have a team that works for you? Do you have a team that respects you? Do you have guests that are coming back in winter when you're in a remote location and that you're counting on the locals to come and make your restaurant survive? Do you count? Those are the real measure of success. Mm-hmm. Do you create food and beverage initiative or special menu for the locals that have been supporting you all year, or you just doing it when you know the hotel is full? Those kind of things, because you need to spend a bit of money in order to do an initiative during a time that you're dead in winter. But it's important to invite them and just say, hey, thank you for supporting us during the tough time. Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming, because if you were not here, we probably would not be open. And so you kind of shifting. There's too much emphasis into the guests that are coming into our hotels and resort because they just spend $2,000 room night. They're too much emphasized versus the local that just comes here for dinner. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes in some state, they can bring their bottle of wine. And so you just, oh man, I miss on that revenue. But at the end of the day, they enjoy coming here. Mm-hmm. That's what should be all that matters. They just enjoy coming here. Right. So treat them because they enjoy coming here. Yeah. If you're not going to treat them well, you're going to make them feel like they're not as important, even though they're here to enjoy themselves, then they will not come back.
Yeah. Anyone that's coming into your restaurant is, amazing. They treat them like such. They are giving you their business. They could have chose to eat anywhere else. They chose here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. I love this. I love this thought. I haven't thought about a lot of these things in quite some time. So I'm enjoying this conversation very much. When I was a hotel chef in California, Nancy Sinatra or Barbara Sinatra. Anyway, one of the Sinatras.
I only know of Frank Sinatra.
So it was either the daughter or the wife. She would host her events there, and Livio, his name was Livio Massagiani. He was the chef of the Italian restaurant, and she loved him because he was Italian. Mm-hmm. And she was doing this event, so I created this Italian menu for her. And it was like 8 dishes that we had to do for the tasting. Livio comes to me and says, "Which one do you want her to pick?" And I said, I really like this veal chop. I don't remember what it was, but I remember it was a veal chop. I said, I really like this veal chop. It's going to be easy for us to execute. It's tasty. It's good. He's like, great. So we go into the tasting, and she loved Livio, loved him. She's giving him a hug and a kiss, and oh, Livio, and this, that, and the other. And Andre's, he's the chef here. Oh yeah, hi, whatever.
Hi, Andre.
Yeah, whatever. Like dismiss me. And she says, he's like, well, for today's tasting, there's a combination of dishes that I made and dishes that Andre made. And she's like, oh, okay. And he's like, Andre made all of these and I made the veal chop. And afterwards she's like, I hated all of Andre's dishes. I loved your veal chop. Oh. And then he winked at me and I remember thinking, that motherfucker, like Like she just loved anything that he makes. Anything that Livio makes is great. Anything that Andre makes is shit. It had nothing to do because I made it all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do the veal chop, and he knew that game. He was older and wiser than me. But going back to your point earlier, the fact that you were French, you could have said,
Yeah, it's all the influence.
Yeah,
Just
this
the
is
influence
it.
that you have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more. It's funny how you get to shape that. When I was working in Sedona, and I had kind of adopted, now this is about the team. Like I've kind of pivoted into my way of thinking, and so I got into this hotel, and I was the chef N&B, the trendy title that came up at some point. When you chef and director F&B, you do chef N&B.
Yeah, double the work for 10%.
Pretty much. And so for me, it was an opportunity for me to initiate and educate myself in the world of front of the house without being heavily held accountable for it.
Yeah.
So that was just a smooth move in order to get there. So I took it, and I realized that I didn't have the time to write menus anymore.
Yeah.
But I had very competent chef that was following me from my previous property. And so I just started to say, okay, guys, we need to change the menu. The season's coming. And the evolution of that over a span of 2 years is I was battling with my own team to trying to have one dish that I could do. It was at some point, it was like, okay, Mikey, you're going to be able to do the dish. And then Nick, you're going to do this. And John, you're going to do this dish. And then at some point, I just like, can I just have one? Just give me one, whatever. And they say, okay, Franck, you can get the lobster dish. And so I was able to have, but my name was always on the menu.
Yeah.
But I was allowing them the place to starting to become chefs before they were chef.
Right.
My cooks were in charge. And you realize that it has an effect that I didn't see coming at the time when I started this. Is when you're at home, because you can't work 7 days a week in an hotel, when you're at home sitting on your couch watching TV, now you have a team of chefs that have extremely invested and engaged towards the food because they created it.
Mm-hmm.
You validated it. They went to a tasting, you gave them feedback, they went back to the drawing board, they come back until you have the dish that is completely finished to your liking because it's your name on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Then now they're going to apply themselves. And we got some of our best results food-wise when we started to shift this.
Mm-hmm.
Is allowing the people the space to grow and to allow to make mistakes, but also being able to come up with their own dish and also receiving criticism. Most of the cooks, I remember in my time, for the first 8 years of my life, I didn't come up with my own dish. The chefs come with the menu, you do your menu, you shut the F up, and then you're just doing whatever it is. That's the way you were coming up.
Yeah.
But I try to shift that to give them a voice, culinary speaking, and be open to criticism.
It's funny. The chef and bee thing. I never said yes to that job. Never. I was like, I'm not doing double the work for 10%. And anytime, and I know I have some chefs friends that have worked for me that are listening that are now chef and bees. And both of them, I remember when they called me up and they said, hey, they're offering me chef and bee. What should I do? I said, double the work for 10%. Tell them to fuck off. But they both took the job. Both of them took the job. And I know when you're in that position, it's not so easy to say no, because the alternative is, okay, well.
It was the hardest part of that is at some point you have to hang your chef coat.
Yeah.
You cannot be a performant and engaging chef and bee, let's call it that way, without hanging your chef coat. You cannot manage the front of the house staying from the expo line. You just can't.
Yeah.
And so at some point I had to make the hard decision to just hang my chef coat. But I also had trained my team to be able to run this kitchen the way I needed them to run the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And so I slowly kind of removed myself from the kitchen operation. And I realized that coming with the sports coat or the suit, whatever the uniform was for the front of the house, I could go in the kitchen as often as I wanted to go and still be in my comfort place, in my comfort zone, being able to still direct a few things. But now I was expected to be in the front of the house. So it became something that I done rather quickly. It was hard, but I kind of almost ripped off the Band-Aid and did it. And I realized that it actually served me a grander purpose by just hanging that chef coat very early on.
I want to ask you about your book, because I enjoy writing as well. And I'm in the process of writing another book. We were talking about that earlier. I would be very curious about your writing process and how do you put idea to paper? And first of all, tell people a little bit about the book.
Yes. So the book called Relentless Growth, which is cultivating a chef's mindset for professional fulfillment. The book is about the approach to it. It was, how do you develop a growth mindset?
Mm-hmm.
I think there is books out there. One that says the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, and how do you develop a growth mindset when you just don't see beyond yourself? And so this book is really written with the analogy that is you against you versus you with you. It's all about you. The entire book is about self-assessment. It's about how do you actually ask yourself the right question of where you at within yourself and at any given point in your life or in your career. And so the reason why I felt like I was a right person to write this is because the hospitality has forced me to confront an outdated version of myself many times. I have to reinvent and redo my identity time and time over the course of my career. And so the book process is, I had observed for many years talented people going to exhaustion, burnout, people quitting the industry with not necessarily have anything plan B behind them. And I just like, wow, this is crazy. We're losing all of this. And I didn't write the book because I had success in my career. I wrote the book because I believe I had lived instinctively what pressure was, what adaptability was, what resilience was. And I can articulate it good now, but at the time I had to hire a book coach to help me because I had too many ideas in my head, too fuzzy, and she helped me providing clarity into this in order to make it the book that we wrote today, and then you're able to grab. So that booking process was, that writing process was, it forced me to slow down a lot. I'm someone that is on the go, go, go. It was therapeutic for me to go back to what has become. And at the same time, it forced me to slow down and pay attention to the industry and how can I help the student of hospitality and the younger generation that is currently now in school. They're currently in school. They have decided to go in hospitality. And as much as the school is going to do their best to prepare them, they have no idea what they're getting into. And so I wanted to provide them a book when they can do the work within themselves without seeking out a mentor wherever they go. They can actually be their own mentor in some aspect.
Interesting. I think this is I can't wait to read it, by the way. I'm excited. When you're writing your process, how do you get ideas on paper? Is it, do you talk and record thoughts? Do you have notes? Do you have sticky notes? What is the, to get into
of course.
minutia?
So my process, I'm someone that doesn't know how to write on a piece of paper ideas and then putting them together. I'm someone that's going to be very much into my head, and I'm only going to write what I feels right. So I can spend 15 minutes not writing nothing and just like going into my head and formulating that sentence until I have it right. And that sentence will lead to another sentence. So it was, I was on my laptop and just writing it, but I didn't start the writing of my book until 7 months after I started the process of the book. My book coach, we created a book proposal technically, and we go over 8 exercises in order for me to have a blueprint in order to write my book. And it's funny because when I thought, I'm going to write a book, and I announced to everybody I'm going to write a book, and everyone says, so where are you at with your book? I said, I haven't started yet. And so because I was into this process, and the first 4 questions that you ask is, who are you writing the book for? Is why do you think you're the right person to write that book? And this is there a need for this book in the industry? And then the last one is, the last question was, do you think you've done enough in your career to be an authority to write that book? And you are introspecting yourself. So once you answer those 4 questions, you answer them. Then after, the second exercise was about, give me the title of this book, 10 titles of the book that you have to give. I had no idea. I thought the book of the title was coming at the end of the book, but no. So I wrote 10 titles, even though I didn't really believe in them. Find out, and one of the 10 ended up becoming Relentless Growth, which is funny enough. And the next exercise is, everyone think they're writing the book that nobody's never written. Okay. We all think that we're going to this and rewrite the book nobody's never written before. And finding out that the exercise with my book coach is, Franck, what are the 5 competitive titles that you would put next to your book on a shelf? what is it that your book would add into the conversation? Okay. And so I had to find 5 books that I believe were inspiring to me, that would be somewhat similar to mine, but not like mine. And this is what this book does not provide that my book will provide. And you end up finding out that you are creating an entire blueprint of what your book's going to be about. You're going to create a table, an annotated table of contents with 5 lines per chapters, how many subtitles. And by the time you write the book and you have a blockage or your flow doesn't come up, you just go back to this. And then you're just able to, oh, wow, that makes sense. Boom, 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 boom. And you just go and go and go and go. So doing that book proposal has definitely helped me navigating my book writing process. The flow that I had, sometime 2 nights, I remember during this, I don't know how many months I wrote this book, but 2 nights, I wrote my book all the way until sunrise because the flow was there. And I was so afraid to lose the flow that I was just writing. And I went to bed. I woke up the next day. I read everything I wrote. And then you obviously to shift a few things here and there. But the intensity and the content, the engagement and the intent that you wanted
you
was
just
there.
tapped in.
You just tapped it.
Yeah.
It was there because the flow was there. I just needed to polish it.
So my process is a little bit different from yours, and I've talked about it before on the podcast, but I'm in the process of writing another book right now. I just put one out. It's an ebook. It was the 48 Laws of Power as a chef, from a chef's perspective, and I'm giving it away for free for people that want it as only ebook. I decided to not publish it just because I was like, But this one was harder to write. So this was, I think, my 7th book that I've written, and it was the hardest one to write because now I know better. You know what I mean? Like the first ones,
there's an expectation.
Yeah, the first ones were easy. I'd pump them out really quick. I wouldn't even I'd write them, and that's good enough. Put it out. Speed was my goal more than perfection. And when I go back, and now it's like, no, it has to be perfect. So I'm looking at everything. Is this right? Is this right? I got to make it better than the last one. But for the writing process, then I move into the audiobook process. And the audio books, because I think nowadays people read with their ears more than old school, like old school with your eyes, new school with your ears. And I do as well. It allows me to consume an audiobook driving or, while I'm washing dishes or whatever. And I remember when I was doing the audiobook, I listened to it and I was like, oh, I sound fucking terrible. I can't. So I was like, I'm going to hire a voice actor to do this. So a lot of people often ask me, like, why didn't you narrate your own books? It's like, well, it's a skill.
I don't like my voice.
I don't like my voice. And I read like when I was in 3rd grade and they would still make me stand up and read to the class, and I'm like, no, it just sounds terrible. It doesn't flow. There's skill.
I do love the imperfection of this, though.
Do you?
I do enjoy, because I'm writing a book about relentless growth. So like if I'm not writing my own book, I'm not reading my own book, then I failed somewhere. So I wanted to experience it just because I wanted to say I've done it. And man, it was brutal. I never anticipated this to be as hard. It took me 2 days, 8 hours in studio to do it. It's coming out in January. And I lost my voice after that, after those 2 days. Obviously with my French accent, trying to read a book and making the words sounding the way it's supposed to sound. The guy that was recording the book, Carlos, which is awesome, he corrected me like about 150 times. So I probably read twice the book over with those 16 hours. But it was tough, but I'm glad I did it. I don't know what's the final product. I know I'm not going to enjoy my voice either, probably. But at the end of the day, I know personally I have connected the most with Audible books that was read and narrated by the author over a voice actor. And I wanted to provide that.
It's some of the feedback that I've gotten is like, I wish André would have read this. I'm thinking, no, you don't. I tried to clone my voice through 11 Labs when I was putting out this last audiobook. I was like, maybe if I could clone my voice and see how it sounds.
Maybe a few years, AI will be able to do that for you.
I'll tell you, it cloned my voice, but the cadence wasn't right. So it didn't sound like me. I think because obviously I do the podcast, so I listen to a lot of the podcast through editing. So I know what I sound like. And I was like, it's my voice, but that's not how I talk. So it's like, I can't do it. So if you ever hear my voice on an audiobook, I promise you it's 11 Labs. It's an AI clone voice. It's not really me.
Well, I hope this next book you'll be able to.
Maybe I'll read the
intro
or something.
One, yeah.
When we're wrapping up, I typically ask a couple of chef questions. So if you had a Mount Rushmore of chefs that you believe should be on Mount Rushmore, 4 of them, who should be?
Oh wow. Mount Rushmore, 4 of them. I think Anthony Bourdain would be one of them on there. Just because it's actually funny because you're asking for a chef. And while Anthony Bourdain was a chef, he was just so much more than that.
Yeah.
And I think it touched so many people beyond the chef industry. So Anthony Bourdain will be there. I would have chef that people might not know, but I would have Olivier Belin, which was my apprenticeship chef that I had when I was younger, which you'll discover in the book. That definitely going to be there. This is the chef that pushed me to a level that I hated as much as I loved it, but he pushed me to a level that gave me an edge in the industry and that kept me disciplined and focused throughout my career. So it would definitely be there. Third chef, I would say Jean-Luc Rabanel, 2 Michelin star chef, the person that wrote the preface of my book recently. So that would be there. That's the third. And then the fourth chef, my goodness, I would say I'm a big fan of actually a pastry chef named Pierre Hermé in France.
Yeah, legend.
Yes, I've done as much pastries that I've done cooking, so I'm able to have navigated between both worlds. And Pierre Hermé is the first pastry chef that decided to confront the boundaries of pastry and the sweet world by incorporating spices, herbs, and all technical skills from the culinary world into pastry. And I loved it. I loved it. I fell in love with pastry because of him.
If you had a bucket list meal, if someone could cook for you, living or not, who would you want
to cook for me?
To cook for you, to eat their food?
Oh, wow. I would say there would be 2 that I would love to taste their food, like them cooking for me, not going in their restaurant, correct?
Yeah, sure. However you want to interpret it.
So I would say one would be Joël Robuchon.
Yeah.
That I would love to cook for me. And the other one would be I would say Paul Bocuse. I would love to have lived in a place and being able to afford going in to eat in his place when he was alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something we'll never get to experience, but yeah.
Chef, where can people find you?
People can find me on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, 2 websites, Incrementum, which is the name of my consulting company, but they can find me on cheffranck.com. They'll be able to find everything about me and my book, and you can find my book in pretty much every special retailers that sells books.
Well, thank you very much, Chef.
No,
it's good having you here.
It was good to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to support the show, you know what to do. Make sure you leave 5 stars, nothing less than 5 stars. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, comment, let me know what you think of this episode. Go to chefspsa.com where you get everything, the books, the merch. Go buy a book, go buy a t-shirt, go buy a hoodie, go buy this hat. Beautiful and nice. Go get it. If you want early access to episodes, subscribe to my Substack. I'm going to link them in the show notes. We'll see you next week. Hit the porno music.
No spawn Drake in the kitchen, mixing, dropping chef knowledge, no fiction. Stirring up the beats, heating up the session. Listen close, class is in session.